Good morning, scholars, and welcome back to Learning with Mrs. Preby. Today we are working on a new nation, lesson 1. Our learning goal is I can compare and contrast indentured servants and slaves in the New World. So we can take a look at this globe and we can find the place in which we live. There's our axle. Let's rotate it around. Even it's this map has these white lines and streaks, this globe here. Those are showing the clouds over the top of the lands. We talked about this continent. You can see it even with all those clouds. That's Africa right there. And here's South America. Let's stop it from moving. Now let's rotate this way. It doesn't normally do this. It's harder to see this. This is actually North America right here. Kind of hard to see, but we can see it right here, North America. Right here is the country that we live in. It's called the United States of America. Right here. And it's colored different on this map to show the country boundaries, I guess. So there's the United States of America. And then if we take a closer look, you can think about exactly what state we live in. And I'm not sure where you are, but the state that we live in right here is Michigan. And we can see that even on this map because of all the Great Lakes around us. Right there's Michigan. Good. So if we think about that, to think about what that actually looks like, we can think about a continent as being this big. Well, if we think about a continent as being this big, then we can think about one country of that continent being about this size. Then if we think about one state, there's 50 of them inside here, so a state would be about that big. So if this was our continent, this is our state, and the state would only be about this big, our country. So you get a kind of an idea of the size. There's 50 states, so each one would take up one small spot here. Okay, we happen to be located in the state of Michigan. You may be in a different state. You might be over here in California or up on the East Coast or down here in Florida or Texas. You could be anywhere. Here's another image of that right here. And I like, all of this is one continent. This is Canada up here and Mexico down here. But all of these red areas are the United States of America. In kindergarten, we learned about the Native Americans, if you remember that. If you did the CKLA program for kindergarten, you learned about them. You specifically learned about the first people who lived in North America, and we call them Native Americans. So I put this image right here into this document to show that the Native Americans were first. Okay, and then we learned about a European explorer named Christopher Columbus who traveled by the ship to the continent of North America. So if we look at this right here, he came from Spain right here, and he took a ship all the way over here. So that was a long way. But if you remember, that's not where he thought he was going, but that's where he ended up, was in the continent of North America. So we put him next. We show that we learned about him. After Christopher Columbus' voyages, more and more groups of people from various countries in Europe decided to make the trip across the Atlantic Ocean to explore North America. One of these groups were the Pilgrims, who came from England and landed on Plymouth Rock along the coast of North America. So, let's see. Can bring this up. Let's see if I can. No, I don't want to do that. So here's that trip from England to Massachusetts. This is the one that was taken by the Pilgrims. Okay, and we can see that image right here, a little bigger. Okay. So in the early part of this domain, you're going to hear about the Pilgrims and other settlers who came from England. Those settlers are called English settlers because they came from a country called England. Later, many years after the first English settlers arrived in North America, the country of England became part of a new, larger country known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, commonly referred to as Great Britain or simply just Britain. Because of this change, you're going to hear references to England as English settlers when learning about the early colonial time periods before 1707. You're also going to hear references to Great Britain or Britain as the British for the time period after 1707. The Pilgrims were not the first English people to settle in North America. In fact, English people had settled in other places in North America before the Pilgrims. In today's Read Aloud, you're going to learn about some other places in North America where English settled, both before and after the Pilgrims' arrival. So listen to find out about other English settlements in North America. That's what we're going to do today. Oops, not that one. This is the North America continent where we live today. So the part colored red is the United States. Many hundreds of years ago, life in North America was very different than it is today. The first people who lived in North America are known as Native Americans. The Native Americans lived in groups called tribes in different regions of North America. There was no stories like we have now, so they had to find or make everything there were no stores. There were no stores like we have now, so they either had to make or find everything they needed to survive, whether it's food to eat, clothing to wear, or a house in which to live. Hundreds of years later, a European explorer by the name of Christopher Columbus, right here, this guy, sailed and reached North America, but it was not where he had planned to go. Do you remember what he was looking for? What Christopher was looking for when he first set sail from Europe? He was looking for spices and gold and other treasures. Okay. Columbus set sail from Europe, hoping to find a quicker way to reach India and China, where spices and gold and other riches were plentiful. But in 1492, when Columbus actually reached land after he sailed the ocean blue, he and his crew did not arrive in India or China. They landed instead in North America, where they met the native people who lived here. So, let's see. Who are these people right here? They're Native American, or they call them Indians. I'm trying to remember why they call them Indians. Oh, right, because they thought Columbus thought he had landed in India. Of course, we know that's not true, right? Okay. After Columbus, sailors from different countries in Europe traveled to North America. Portugal, Holland, Spain, France, and England all sent explorers to North America, continuing to hope find riches and goods that they might bring back to trade and to sell in Europe. So right here, this is all North America up here. So over here is Europe. Okay, this whole area, this oranges. Okay, the European explorers called North America the New World because it was new to them as compared to other countries. The countries of Europe where they came from. So everyone was interested in this new world. I'm wondering if you can remember what event is happening in this picture. I'll bet most of you said Thanksgiving because that is Thanksgiving. The English did not want to just visit the New World. They were interested in starting settlements in order to live there. So when people start settlements, they move to a new place. They wanted a place for their people to spread out from their small island country, England, across the Atlantic Ocean. You probably remember that the English pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock in the 1600s, about 100 years after Columbus. The pilgrims had great difficulty adjusting to their new life in the New World because it was very different from the city life they knew in Europe. The Native Americans that the pilgrims met helped them to survive, especially during that first year. The pilgrims were not the only English people to start settlements in North America. In fact, before the pilgrims ever arrived at Plymouth, right here, other English men and women settled in 2 other places. The first English colony was on Roanoke Island. I think the island is probably right here, but it's this state right here. Followed by a colony at Jamestown. Jamestown is going to be up here. A colony is a place that is ruled by a faraway country. So the English men and women who moved to and settled in Roanoke Island and Jamestown did not make their own rules or laws. The English king and government ruled the colonies. A government is a particular group of people who make decisions and laws for the people who elect them. The first child born in North America to English parents was born on Roanoke Island. Her name was Virginia Dare. The people are English settlers. Oh, these people right here are all English settlers. And they are watching the baptism of Virginia Dare. A baptism is a Christian religious ceremony that sometimes takes place after a baby is born. We don't really know what happened to Virginia Dare or the other English settlers living on Roanoke Island because they mysteriously disappeared several years after they arrived. For this reason, the Roanoke colony is often called the Lost Colony. This colony was not really lost, but